Another 7 goals from Barcelona. I think a few years ago it was Gary Neville and MSN, and we saw 7 goals at that time, and we saw one today. Obviously, a goal fest from Flex Barca, and obviously against a team which is not doing very well in Valencia right now. They are the bottom three, so we should probably take that into consideration. And then they haven't been that well, haven't been playing that well, but it still seemed a little bit, men against the boys out there for a while. And I mean, you can want to, come up to Barca and play in this open way, but if you do, you will get punished. Almost every single team gets punished, or you have to be Jose Bordalas. So, anyway, welcome all. Dom, how was that?
That was quite something, but it tells you something about Flex Barca that actually we're getting somehow used to these things, right? Because we do get this quite often this season. Well, not 7 goals, maybe. We get good entertainment from Flex Barca. We get good football from Flex Barca when it clicks, right? But even when it doesn't click, there's still a dose of entertainment, which is appreciated by the fans and by us, obviously. And this one, as you said, it was maybe against a team that was a bit ill prepared. I would say. I think their game plan going into the game was kind of shaky, not really much there to begin with, and you know what, tactically speaking, I stopped caring about tactics after about 15 minutes of this game, right? I was like, okay, I just threw my notes away. I'm like, okay, I don't have anything to write because this is just a demolishing job, and that nothing more to say really, tactically speaking. But it was a good showing from our players. Most of them did really well, and that's a very good sign going into this crunch time of the season when some of the key players like Balde, for example, or Fermin or Frankie, these players who have been on the French side, they're starting to perform. They're starting to actually show us some quality that we need and the depth that we need in certain places. And I think that's a very reassuring fact, especially at this time of the season. And especially, we don't know if more players are coming or more players are leaving. But the squad that we do have seems to be clicking, right? So that to me that was amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, I would
that's kind of.
agree. I don't know whether more players are coming. Seems hard. Maybe it's the Ansu Rashford thing, or maybe if it happened, maybe it will not happen. But
Mm,
apart from that, I don't see anybody coming in the window. So this is
yeah.
mostly the team that we have till the end of the season.
Yep.
Um, but to your point, right? I think Frankie's suddenly woken up, and you can see shades of old Frankie. I think Furman today played a blinder.
Yeah.
Um, would have loved to see Pablo Torre get some minutes, but didn't happen, and that's
Oh, he
understandable.
did play. He played. He played. Pablo Torre played. Yeah.
Did he play at the end?
Yeah. Torre played. Torre played. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so yeah, I mean these French players coming in and performing, yeah, should have been. It's good news for Barca fans.
Yeah. Absolutely is. And when it comes to just the pure setup, I think we can just touch upon this briefly because there's not much to discuss. We can just, for the sake of this being somewhat tactical at times, when you go to Barca with this flat 4-4-2, right? It was basically for the majority of the first half, Valencia were in this flat 4-4-2, which means three lines, two lines of four and two, and then two at the end. And those lines were so flat, meaning there was no compactness and there was no staggering of lines. When you say the lines are not staggered, you're meaning that vertically speaking, players are not occupying different zones, and that means they're not covering enough space. They're only covering three zones essentially, so 4-4-2. That's what they're doing, and they're leaving so much space in between all those lines. That it was so easy for Barca to just play the passes into those areas between the lines and access anyone they love to access, right? So going over Valencia, going through Valencia, or going around Valencia, all of those things were a viable option. And when you give Barca so many options and so much space, there's not a world in which they don't score many goals. So I think this was always going to happen. And to have a game plan to go to Barca away from home with that setup from the get-go, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and that's exactly what happened. And I think this is what the whole tactical side can stop, because there's nothing much more to say. Barca were given space and Barca exploited space, but also Barca took their chances. This was also something that's worth noting, as we had plenty of chances, but we in the first half, from the five or six shots, we scored 4 or 5 goals, right? So it was quite something.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think it's a super scores case. I think XGs that are 4.5. This apps show different XGs everywhere. But anyway, if at
yeah,
4.5 you're scoring 7 goals, you're definitely overshooting your XG quite
yeah,
handsomely. So yeah, I
hmm
mean, when Barca click and when those finishes come off, then we have score lines like this, and then there are games where we
exactly.
can't take our chances, and then we lose, like against Las Palmas or against Leganes or against the games that we have lost. And it seems strange that we won't be. It'll be hard for us to win La Liga with performances like this, because when you if you see that if a neutral sees the team play today, they'll be like, wow, this is the best team in La Liga, hands down,
Yeah.
probably one of the
hmm
best teams in the world right now. But this is not what we see every week, and I'll be challenged in La Liga. That said, huge credit. Like, I don't think any of us would have considered or thought that our with this setup we could be this dominating when the season
Yeah.
started. So credit where it's due to Flick.
Yeah.
And as Dom said, like, even if you get somebody in, whom would you remove? Everybody's performing right now. Like, even
Yeah.
today, Ferran was amazing. Fermin in that 10 role is outstanding. I don't think he's a winger. So whenever he's played as a winger, he doesn't do that well. But in that 10 role, he's awesome. But then Barcelona has so many 10s right now. Like, Olmo is a 10, Fermin is a 10, Pablo Torre is a 10. We have a bunch of 10s out there. So it'll be hard to, make that decision on who's the regular 10, or maybe it will be just a rotation, what have you. But
hmm
very good signs. I think Ferran's first goal was outstanding. Lever's goal was outstanding. Like,
Yeah.
beautiful goals from that perspective. Even Fermin's first shot that he took top corner, it was good. So lots of positives, but how much can we take that? Because this is not the level of resistance they will face in most of the games that they play. Valencia weren't
hmm
really up that good tonight. But a win is a win, and it will definitely boost the morale of the team.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because even to today, and guys, you will see this, you will hear this once the podcast is out. But we talked about this Dev today about how tactically speaking, most teams in La Liga that set up shop like park the bus or have their defensive setups against Barca, they're very tactically rigid, very disciplined, very tough to breach. And Valencia is one of the very few that just don't have that quality, right? They do have player quality. I think they have decent talent in the team, but this, tactically speaking, structurally speaking, as a collective, they were just all over the place. And when teams do that against this Barca, the goals are coming, and you don't have the firepower to actually outscore this Barca. So even if Valencia's idea was, okay, we'll play an open game, but we know that Barca can see chances, so maybe that's our way in. But you don't have the firepower to go to open warfare with Flick as a Valencia coach, right? You don't have that. So I think their game plan was flawed from the beginning. But as they've said, most teams in La Liga that face Barca, they know how to set up against Barca, right? They know what Barca struggles with, and so they do that. And they are all enough. They have enough discipline and tactical know-how to actually perform to the way they need to perform it. So it's going to be hard in La Liga. This is not the standard. This is far off the standard. That needs to be said. Yeah, that needs to
Yeah,
absolutely
because if
be.
you consider this, then it'll be hard, because you'll expect this in every game. It won't. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen in every game. One thing I did want to talk about was the absence of Araujo. I don't know. Was there something about injuries or anything to him, or
See, I have
was
no
it a
idea. It
tactical
was
decision that he was dropped after signing that bigger contract, and then Eric Garcia playing in that place when Inigo is out?
that was a bit weird. I honestly, I don't know.
I
Was he
didn't
in
really
the
understand what
squad?
that was,
If
unless Flick is saying that it's okay, you can go, even if you have signed a
I
contract.
mean, if he was in the squad, which I don't know, I've not seen the squad list. I can check now. While we talk, if he was in the squad, this would suggest that he was just rested or dropped for tactical reasons. We
But
don't
what
know,
for? He's been
obviously.
rested all season. He just came back
Ex-
from injury. Why
ex-
would he be rested?
exactly. So I don't know. I'm just trying to look for the squad news or anything like that. Okay, let's see. Okay, squad news for Valencia. Araujo is in the team, so he was in the team. That would suggest that this was a tactical decision. And I want to say it was a very good one
Yeah,
as
it
well
was
by
a perfect
Fleck.
tactical decision, I would say. I
Uh,
agree. And we agreed with that on the Araujo episode, and you guys will see that when it comes out like earlier this week.
mhm.
But yeah,
Because
I think
if there was a sorry, you were saying,
no, no, right.
yeah. If there was a game to play Eric and Kubarsi together, this was it because all the space was there, and you have two of the elite ball-playing center backs, playmakers from the back line. Because in the first three goals, I think both of Eric had two through passes and Kubarsi had that over the top pass. So they were both highly involved in all the goals. And when you give Barca that much space and they have Kubarsi and Eric on the ball in possession in space, and their key targets are in space as well, this is a winning combination. So if Flick knew this going in, so if he knew, okay, Valencia are going to give me this space, and this was a tactical decision, then it was a masterful decision by Flick. It has to be said because Araujo definitely would not have been needed in this case at all, right? You take an Eric over an Araujo in this scenario any day because you are not expecting to need Araujo's strengths as much, whereas Eric's strengths we saw them on display. They helped enormously tonight. They really did.
I agree. And probably, and there are other people's like Barca fans, they're already saying that yes, probably will tactical decision just to rest them because you can rest them
Yeah.
against Valencia. You can't rest them against Atlanta's and whoever else that we are going to participate. I do agree with that, but a starter is a starter, right? And apparently, Araujo has said that if he is not starting, and that's why his clause is what he is. He wants to leave and get to a place where he can be the undisputed starter. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something. But it was strange when I didn't see him, lace up his boots. That said, very
Yeah.
happy with what we had because we had line breaking passes by the dozen, and these two did it perfectly and kept that attacking intensity alive, which was very important. So I think it worked out well for us. But yeah, that was one of the things that did strike my mind.
Yeah.
Fermin, I think somebody talked about Fermin and Fermin's performance. But yeah, I mean, when you play him in position, I think he's amazing. He's outstanding. And it's a bit of a miss that we haven't been able to nurture him in the way, if you consider how he came up last year and his performances with the Spanish NT in the Olympics and Euros. So obviously there's a good player there with who was high on confidence but didn't get the number of chances that he wanted in the position that he's good at. Kind of didn't perform this season, which I feel is a miss. Because it'll be a miss if we have to lose out on him or if he goes to some other team or what have you. I personally think he brings a lot to the table. That said, we have a lot of tens. That said, a lot of our tens are also quite injury prone. So, what are your thoughts on that, Dom? We have Olmo, we have Torre, we have even Gavi, maybe. We have Fermin, all who can play in that 10 role. Who do you take? Like, yeah, sure, Gavi will be there, but I do
Mhm.
feel that he brings goal scoring aptitude, which none of the others have.
He does, but again, he would need the space. Although tonight was more impressive to me. Of course, the ball striking is always there. That's one of Furman's biggest weapons is the ball striking, and he can actually score those goals from different angles, from different distances, which is always going to be useful. And he has the goal scoring instincts inside the area as well. So he is a good goal scorer. But what impressed me more was how he combined with Lamine, especially he would receive the ball in somewhat congested areas still when he had a marker on his back. He would still turn, he would still carry the ball a bit forward, and then he would still combine with Lamine on the right side or down the middle. And to me, that was really impressive, and that would be something that he would need if he's going to be one of the options or real options for us to start games ahead of other players. Because in the pecking order, I think almost if he's registered and fit and all that, he still starts. I think ahead of someone like Furman. I would still put like Gavi can be a bit lost sometimes in that role, but he also has good attacking instincts. I would still play Gavi, but potentially over Furman. But then that depends what the rest of the midfield looks like as well, right? So that's also we have what you have to consider. But the other thing that is connected to this is Lewandowski, right? Because if you have Lewandowski, then all of these players are fighting for the number 10 role, right? But if you don't have Lewandowski, you have a potential of playing multiple of those players in the false nine role. Not at the same time, obviously, but you can rotate them. You can have Olmo in the false nine. You can have Fermin in the false nine as well, because Fermin can play that role as well. You can
But
even
then do
have
we need
Rafinha.
somebody in the summer? Let's say Leva goes.
Yeah,
Ferran gets used in a much better way, like he was today, and he performed brilliantly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you have Fermin and you have Olmo. Do we really need somebody? Because of we have seen for a fact, like at the highest of levels against the highest caliber teams, these guys can score 6, 7 goals. So we don't
They
really
can.
need goal scorers. But then, do we need something in the team if Leva goes out and gives the space?
Probably, I think if Leva goes, I think a big forward will definitely come, right? It might not be a number nine because we can substitute for number nine, but we will bring a big forward somewhere. Now, if you can bring someone, I know many people dream of Isak and players like that because those players can actually play a multitude of roles. They can be a wide presence if needed. They can be a central presence if needed, and there is also potential of having a Leao who can play, who's obviously a left winger, but he can be transitioned to a number nine role as well when needed and attack to the center, be this more dynamic type of number nine who attacks the space and carries the ball and who is this unstoppable force when in motion, right? That's a completely different profile from Lewandowski, but it can work because what we've seen that Barca, when they do have a different profile than Lewandowski, someone who's more dynamic, someone who moves more, someone who presses a bit more, someone who is not as static, right? Then in that sense, Barca have a different shape, obviously, but we've seen this work a couple of times now in a row, I would even say. So the question is, okay, if we lose Lewandowski, we lose that kind of a striker, which to me is still a valuable profile because he's still this instinctive finisher. And that goal that you mentioned, that was something that only he can score, right? Because we don't have that many finishers like that in the team. But then again, how much do we lose if we drop Lewandowski and we don't replace him like for like, right? If we have goals from other sources, then the need for such a reinforcement decreases. That's what I'm trying to get to here.
Completely agree. I mean, you can't really consider like if you look at Leva, what he brings and what he has done. Like, sure, he has become old, he has become slow, he's
Yeah,
not effective anymore. But like, that's an elite nine. You've got to
yeah.
consider that. So, for a club like Barca, who probably wants to win a lot of silverware, they'll probably need to think about that replacement for sure. But I think, I mean, Flick has the wherewithal and the personnel needed, at least in this season, to really make it work without having to dip into more spending, more expenditure to get someone immediately. I don't think we really need anyone immediately, the way the team is playing, and what we have seen. So that, yeah, that was mostly where I was going with here. Somebody's let's take some of these questions that they've said that, okay, can we agree that this was Fermin's only game after Bayern? If we bring a left wing, Rafa will also compete for the 10. And Fermin can also be a false nine like Olmo. So yeah, the third one down, Domori said that he can be. If he can, they have skill sets that they can interchange and they can be. Regarding, is it this only good game after Bayern? Has he played that much? I don't think so. And has he played that much in his position? Don't really know. The few times he has played, he hasn't been that impressive, which is true. But I don't think he was given the right environment as well. Now it's left to the footballer obviously to adjust to it. But Dom, what are your thoughts on this?
Uh, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think Fermin has some of the qualities that can clearly and directly impact games when he's in his environment. But I also think that he needs a game state like this one. He needs a game state in which Barca can afford to be a bit more direct, in which Barca can or are afforded a bit more space, and in which Barca can actually put numbers forward because this is the trademark that Flick does. He puts uh, people forward. We bombard the box with bodies, and we try to overload certain areas, and then from that stage we get to the massive goal scoring that we do, right? So now for Fermin to be this effective moving forward, he would need that game state more often than not. I still think that when there's a tight game, when you need a bit more patience and control, when you need a bit more tactical know-how, we need to actually outsmart and outplay the opposition. I'm not sure that this Fermin shines as much as he shined today. Now, is that a big problem now? it is for a player who has aspirations of being a starter, a nailed starter for Barca. For someone who's squad depth, not as much of a problem, because then if you're just squad depth, which Fermin is at this point, then you can use him situationally. Okay, this is a game when Fermin can actually do damage. Play him, absolutely fine. This is a game where his profile does not give us as much. Okay, we have different options. So I think that's the best way to look at Fermin, because he's not someone who you can play in every game, sit in every situation against every opponent, and that he will give you the same exact output every time. That's the thing with him.
Yeah, probably. It'll be interesting to see, though, however, how Flick into season two takes them forward.
Yeah,
This season was this season what it was. Next season, I don't know what our situation will be and who will come in and who will go, and the state of the team. But it will be interesting to see how he uses this talent. Like, does Eric Garcia stay? He obviously stopped his
yeah,
going, and if he stays, what role does he play? If does Fermin stay? If he stays, what role does he play? Olmo probably will stay, but his injuries are not going away anywhere anytime soon. So that's going to be a recurring problem for us consistently. So it'll be interesting to see how Flick manages this, and because these are things that have actually impacted us in winning some games, which is why we are where we are in the league.
yeah, yeah. I think if I had to point out something that I think will have to change or maybe improve going forward, I think the schedule is a bit easier for us going forward. I think at least mentally, if you have more home games, if you have quote unquote easier games, I'm not sure if the schedule probably gets more congested as we go if we keep up this up in Copa del Rey as well as in the Champions League. However, in the league, I think things will get a bit easier before they get more difficult. And this is something that can be a mental boost for us, but also games like tonight. I've seen a lot of people say this on the Barca timeline, and I do agree. Flick's game management is still, I still don't fully like it. Right, when you have to wait until the 70th plus minute to sub off some of the key starters, players who have been running and amassing minutes week in week out, it's even when you're 5 or 6 goals up, you're still not doing it right. I don't see the point in that. And then you make a change. His first two changes were Lewandowski, and who was the second one? I don't remember who it was. Doesn't matter. But I didn't like either of those changes, and I'm like, okay, why? So these
I
things
think Lever
sometimes,
was just to get his numbers up. I
of course,
personally think it
of
was
course,
just a.
yeah.
It
I
was.
mean, I do agree. I think that
I
was
think
an
he just went
option.
and said, "Hey, this is a match I can get a few goals. You got to put me in, coach."
It is true. I mean, it's true, and I believe that. I actually believe that to be a real reason. But is that actually for the benefit of the whole team? It's not. I mean, especially for the long term chasing of the league title, it is not. And in especially when you want to compete in three competitions, three difficult competitions, because we're getting into in the crunch time in Copa del Rey. We're past these quote unquote easier opponents. The Champions League, the knockout stages are here, which means that a bad day means exit
You're out.
potentially. You're out exactly. So there's not much wiggle room here to be chasing pichichis over a team stability. I see. I understand that. Okay, Leva go score
I
goals.
think it's just an emotional thing, like it's just that game management that you need to do with your players, and you got to sometimes listen to them, and whatever. I agree with
Yeah,
you though on your point. Your logic is flawless, but I think when you're working with a team and you have those people, and
yeah. I mean, yeah,
somebody who has scored that many number of goals comes and says, "Hey, I've got this chance to win it. Yeah, you got to listen to me, right?" So how do you say no at that time? Being a coach, I don't know. I've never been in the situation, so I won't be able to say that. But
yeah.
it seems
True.
like a little bit of that than anything else. Um, Having said that, though, I mean, to what you said, the difference between Barca having it's a weird paradox. So we're playing great, right? We're playing good football. There's no question. Everybody in the timeline, all the fans will say, yes, finally, we are playing well after years. We want to
Hmm.
watch our team play, correct? Which is good. And we are winning some great games. But the difference between us having a season winning nothing and the difference between us having a season which is worth something is basically 3 games. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Literally 3 games.
Mm.
One bad game, Champions League, we're out. One bad game, Copa del Rey, we're out. League will be hard anyways. with the gap
Yeah.
that we have with Madrid right now. It's not going to be easy. So it's weird that with this kind of a performance, we can end up the season probably trophyless.
hmm it's also weird because we've seen this type of performance multiple times this season, but without this result. Right? We've seen it against Atletico, for example, when we suffocate them, we play brilliant football, but nothing comes out of it. So this tonight, well, it was an outstanding performance, result-wise and performance-wise. It wasn't that different to what we've been seeing.
No,
I wouldn't
I
to
agree
say
with you.
I won't even say most of the time. There were bad games. Don't get me wrong. There were bad games or bad halves of football that we've played multiple times as well throughout the season. But there were games that we play on this level without the result going our way.
Yeah,
So
I buy
uh,
that point 100%.
yeah. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, if you can keep the performances up, the result that's kind of an unwritten rule in football, right? If consistent performance, even if it doesn't yield results immediately, over a longer term, it's a curve like this, right? It goes up.
I
That's
at that point.
yeah.
So maybe by next season or 2 seasons down the line,
hmm
we'll be like generational,
Yeah.
a team that wins everything. But highly possible.
hmm
But it just feels so weird that in
It
this
does.
season it has been such an amazing ride for Barca fans.
Mhm.
And the football that Barca have played, and it's been accepted widely. I mean, if you hear the critiques um, or the good things that are said about the team right now, everybody accepts that this team on its day, when it's on song, is unplayable,
hmm
absolutely unplayable, and everybody accepts that. But that margin is maybe 3 games, like
Yeah.
literally. You get
Yeah.
3 bad days,
Something.
and that's it. That's the end of the season for Flake, and it'll be just sad for what he has done and what he has been able to bring into the team in such short time with so many constraints and so less resources. Okay, somebody talked about Marcus Rashford, and we talked about this as well in our
Yeah.
podcast. Dom, where does Marcus Rashford fit in if he comes? I'll let you go first, and then my thoughts.
hmm Where does he fit in? So he will play as a left winger or a striker, right? The only two options as of right now. Now, does he come in and displace Rafinha? I don't think he
I think
does
so.
immediately. He would have to work his way up, and that would be a long trek up
Long
for
walk.
him, a long walk for him to displace Rafinha at the moment. So I think he comes in as a bench option first and foremost. That has to be said, unless Flick does something really crazy and benches Lewandowski for Rashford permanently, which I don't think it will happen anyway. So he comes in. The first position he's going to play is the bench. I think that's the first position that he's going to play if he comes in. But then I think he does have the quality to impact games from the left wing and from the number 9 position. But I think primarily from the left wing because that gives him more space to do his runs and more space to break the game the way he can break it.
Especially
Oh
in those games when we are not getting that ball in somehow. We're playing
yes.
great games, nothing's
Mhm.
happening, and then you use him to destabilize and force an intervention.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
when he comes in, a bench player who comes in when things are
Mhm.
not going your way, you're down a goal, or you're not being able to break a block, or you're just one on one, or whatever. I think that's the
Mhm.
only use Rashford will have in the next 6 months if he ever comes in. But
Yeah.
he's not benching anyone in this setup. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. And he shouldn't because you have to earn that privilege, right? And what message would that send if he comes in and bitches at Rafinha, who's having the season of his career, and then a new guy who's been benched by Man United at this moment comes in and displaces a player of the season for Barca. I don't think that should happen in
I
any
don't think that's
world, right?
happening. I don't think that's
No.
happening. But yeah,
Yeah.
we have all seen those games when we are trying and we are missing and missing and missing, and they are scoring goals on the other side. I think in those situations, 70th minute, 65th minute, I think you put a Rashford in, you try and force a conversation, you try to force an intervention, and something happens. That's basically what his role will be if he does
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah. If he
Which is
comes in.
again a very big if, given where we are, given the state of our finances, given the fact that Ansu Fati really doesn't want to leave. But it's just weird that even today it's 7-1 when
Yeah.
Flick is making changes. Ansu Fati does not get a run in, which is like,
No.
I mean, it's just the right. He should see the writing on the wall,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's sad, but hanging in here is not probably going to help him a lot at this stage of his career.
No.
Okay, let's go into some other questions. I feel most of the matches we draw lost, our attackers were bad, not finishing chances, even last month against Tafe. I don't know whether they're bad, because if you see the games that we are winning, 7-1, 5-1, 6-1, whatever, we are outscoring our XG massively, which means we convert half chances into goals. And then there are the games when we can't actually convert the chances. So I don't know whether there is a variance of a mean that we need to take in that. But the ones that
Yeah,
we are winning, whether you take the big games like the Madrid games, the Bayern game, these games, Valladolid, we did 7. So we have massively outscored our XG and scored goals that we didn't even think would happen, but they happened. Right? They just
yeah,
happened, and that's why we went away. Like today, think about it: the first goal from Frankie, the second goal from Ferran, one touch, right? And they just happen. It doesn't happen in every game. So
mhm,
were they bad? I don't know. Did they not finish their chances? 100%. They didn't. But that's part of the normal. Which striker is going to bury all his chances in every game? It's not going to happen, right? From that perspective. So
yeah.
I don't know. What's a correct answer to this? Mental fatigue? I don't know. Are they mentally fatigued? Pretty young guys out there in the team. It's like hardly 23 years old is the average age of the team. So no idea.
Yeah, I think the good point that you made there was you can't really expect us to score. So the goals that we scored, some of those goals that we scored were downright unbelievable, right? And from those angles, from those distances, the game
Especially
state,
Rafinha
everything.
goals. If you
Yeah,
take
Rafinha
Rafinha's
goals.
whatever 30 goals or whatever he has scored, I think
Yeah,
70% are like unbelievable. How did he do that? Like it was not
exactly.
supposed to happen.
And if you put that same player in that same position like 10 times, he scores that goal maybe twice or 3 times, right? So that's the goal that you don't really score consistently and score it often. So I think that has to be taken into account. That's one thing. The other thing is Barca are very much a momentum team. So if we miss one sitter, miss two sitters, then we're in trouble. Then we are in trouble of actually missing 10 sitters in the game. However, on the flip side, like tonight, for example, you score the first chance you get, you immediately score the second chance you get, and then you can just score anything. You can score 100 goals if needs be, right? So Barca are very much like that. When they smell blood and they draw first blood, that's when they get going and they can score goals for fun. But if you can deny them those first
The first 20
moments,
minutes, you
yeah,
deny
yeah.
Barca the first 20, 25 minutes, you don't let them score a goal, that
Mm.
team will get frustrated.
Yeah, they'll get exactly. I think it is frustration to a point where, then you get into territory from. So you go from scoring unbelievable goals to missing unbelievable opportunities. It goes, yeah, it goes the opposite way, entirely the opposite way, flips entirely. So I think that's also one thing to notice about this Barca, and because we are very temperamental and our game states are very temperamental. They all depend on how we start, how we go into the game, and that's the feeling that we sometimes carry with us throughout the whole 90 minutes, right? For good and for bad. And that's why our chances for winning Champions League can be there, can be high, because if we start well, if we smell blood, draw first blood, we can beat the Liverpools and Arsenals of this world. Probably can, because I mean, there will be a big challenge, of course, it would be, but we have the quality, right? And sometimes we have this godly touch to actually beat anyone, right? On the flip side, this is not so good for La Liga, because this is not really a sustainable way to win 36 games a season, right? Because it's not. It has a lot of variance. Our gameplay has a lot of variance, which means that we don't really have a controlled environment at all times when we play a game of football, right? We're very temperamental, which can be good for one-off nights when we're on fire, but it's not really optimal, I will say, for a sustained or and long period of having to win games consistently. And I think that's our one of the main issues of us in La Liga.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And so yeah, there's so many interesting dynamics in how the season is turning out, and absolutely did not expect this to happen this way. But it is, and there is so much good to take away, and then there are some concerns as well. But overall, I think the club's in the right direction, and I think they should be given this chance to build this out a little bit. Right, this is the first season. I think he definitely should be given a chance and some backing from the board to just build this out for a little bit and build this crop of players. The nexus, like average, we are starting 5 to 7 players from La Masia every single game, which is awesome. and the fact that by now this has become routine and commonplace, I think they should just continue it and then just build on this, because again, from a PR perspective, from a from how the club was positioned itself, it's such a good thing. Are you guys watching the U20? No, we're not. I'm not, at least. Work, this and that. But that said, we are going to come up with a series on new talent. So do keep a lookout. It'll mostly be in the form of
Yep.
ebooks, mostly be in the form of detailed content. We've been working behind the scenes in making a list of, for the lack of a better word, of the talent that we want to cover. Young, mostly. Some maybe a little bit older, but I think, yeah, the ones that we would like to see in Barca, and even if they don't come in Barca, the ones who have potential to be good.
Yeah.
So we have been working on that, and we will be launching a series of them throughout the year, with the first one coming up next month. I won't talk about the name. Let it be a secret, and it'll come out in time. But yeah, we'll be covering this on talent, right? New age
Yeah.
talent, under 20 talent to look out for, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Absolutely, and we'll also have scouts join us for conversations and live streaming, so you guys actually get an insight on how this whole process actually works. So, what do we look for in young talent? How do we actually even identify young talents that have a good ceiling, that have good potential? Because there's a whole sea of young players out there, and you wouldn't actually believe how many messages I still get from scouts and people saying, "Okay, can you push my player to that club?" And I'm like, I can't do that, right? It's not. I'm not that kind of a influencer in football just now. So it's a whole process. It's very difficult sometimes, and it's not easy to identify players that can actually transfer their talent and their potential to the biggest of stages, right? That's not easy, and that just puts into perspective how big or how good actually Lamine Yamal, for example, is, because he's a player who's only 17, and he's arguably the best player on the planet right now at that age. And it's not. I mean, I know that it's not easy, but it's just insane how not easy that is actually. So it's a privilege to have him and Kubarsi. Even Pedri. Pedri is also still very, very young. Gavi is still very young. We have so many young. Balde is still young, and I could go on. And that's one of the best things about this Barca, is that you have these bunch of youngsters that have such a high ceiling, and they're already at this age that they are already competing at the highest levels, and that's
They've
incredible.
normalized it. If it is strange that at 17 they
Yeah,
have normalized this, and we are expecting that, oh, this is normal. This is how it should be. So, but yeah, keep a lookout, and a watch out, because we have been thinking about this for a while, and we
yeah,
wanted to do some background research, do some work behind before we went out with it.
yeah.
But it has been our wish to talk about new talent for a while. So hopefully you like the scouting series that comes out, and we'll hopefully keep it live for some time. So. Request your support on that. Anyway, coming back to the game, and we'll possibly wrap it up in a bit. So
Yeah.
7-1, great result. Atlanta coming up. Um, what are your takes, Dom? If you're Flick, are you making too many changes? Are you gunning for the number one spot? Are you keeping it to two, looking at who we have to play next? What are we doing?
I think when you look at Flick's quote unquote history of rotations, right, it doesn't happen often. That's number one. He doesn't like to rotate his best team. Even when there's a possibility to rotate, he mostly doesn't. He will surprise you with a full team rotation every once in a while, for better or worse. But I think him rotating today would mean there will be less rotation probably against Atalanta, and I think there's so much money involved in that game that
Yeah,
Barca still want to win it. So and of course, yeah, we're
I do
guaranteed.
buy the money point. I think
Yeah,
we're talking 100 million. That's a
yeah,
large amount of money for a club as cashed up as Barca. So yeah, I think your point there from a money perspective. Do you think Atlanta will cause any real problems?
yeah. They're a very gung ho team now in open games, which I would expect it to be. Still, I've not watched a lot of Atalanta this season, so I can't really speak in definite words. But they are mostly an open team. I'm not sure if that has changed lately. I don't think it has. But in open warfare, we can beat anyone. It can get ugly, sure, it can, but I don't think. I think I think we have a good chance in that setup, or a better chance in that setup. So I would still say that we can win that game, or we will win that game. So let's see.
Well, before we go, parting thoughts on Chesney. I think he's the luckiest player in the world right now. I think he was atrocious today in the goal again, but he was so lucky that we didn't concede more than one. But I think, yeah, Barca have to sort that goalkeeping situation in sometime sooner than later. I think I don't know
Mm,
what the answer is. I don't know whether Iñaki Peña is the long time answer, or whether
mm,
Diego Cohen is the long time answer. Maybe Ter Stegen is coming back. Maybe. But I think, yeah, I mean, Chesney can't be the answer. But he's a great guy. I like him. He's fun, and
yeah,
but I mean, he's been atrocious, and it's a liability. Like one
yeah,
day it will cause us to lose a game, and that'll be a problem, and so on. Touch upon Fermin. Yes, we already talked about Fermin. You'd love him to, at least I would love him to continue like this. I absolutely like his profile and personality and how he has come up the ranks. It's a great story in him.
it
Hopefully,
is.
he gets to continue this. Dom, any thoughts?
Mhm. On Furman
Or
or on Chesney.
Chesney, Vernon, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, on Chesney, I agree. And the thing is, and I have to like put my hand up and say, okay, but at the beginning of the season, I was like, okay, if Chesney is his old self and he's actually sharp, he will start ahead of Pena on quality alone. But today, and this at this point in time, I would not take Chesney over Pena. I would not. Pena has improved tenfold, and he actually gives me some sort of security. When I see him in goal, yeah, I don't. I no longer think that he has hands of glass. I think he has improved a lot in that sense, and I think his aura and his belief in himself has improved a lot, and that has caused him to actually have better performances as well. So I think at this point in time, I have to hold my hands up and say, okay, I was wrong. I think Pena now is rightfully the number one goalkeeper ahead of Chesney. Of course, we don't know what happens with Ter Stegen. We can't really comment on that. But at this moment, between them two, I know who I'm picking, like any day for a big game, and that's good for Pena, I think.
Well, that's it, guys. We've been at it for about 40, 45 minutes, which is great. And thanks for joining. A lot of you joined and supported us. And we'll try to keep it regular. Sometimes we do miss, so apologies on that. Life comes in the way. But I think we'll cover the Champions League game against
Yeah,
Atalanta and the follow
absolutely.
games that are coming through. So hopefully we'll see each other. And let's enjoy this win. It was amazing. 7-1 again against Valencia. Regards to Gary Neville again. And said, have a great week,
Poor
guys.
guy.
Enjoy and stay safe and be kind.